everyone, welcome to tonight's episode of the Havoc Rundown. I'm Justin, and we have an exciting show lined up for you. Tonight, we're diving into the world of competitive robotics with an exclusive discussion about the latest updates in robot design regulations. Joining us is none other than Ricky Willems, the safety director. It is safety director, right? Ricky, I have that title right?
You got it.
Okay, safety director at the at NHRL, the National Havoc Robot League, which of course we are always talking about. Ricky will be here to break down the new robot design rules, providing clarity on specific points and explaining some of the motivations behind some of the new regulations. We'll explore what these changes mean for builders, competitors, and the league itself. Whether you're a dedicated competitor, a robotics enthusiast, or just curious about the fast-paced world of robot combat, you won't want to miss this deep dive into how these rules will shape the future of the sport. So get ready to listen in as we ask the important questions and uncover the stories behind these changes. Let's get started. But as you know, I can't do this all by myself, so joining me this episode, ready to dive into the world of robotics and trivia, our brilliant bot facts expert and game master is here to keep us all on our toes. The master of mechanics and games alike, it's Ryan Hunter.
There's too many rules to do. No game this week.
Yes, our game master is without his game this week. Prepare to be amazed by the artistry and innovation of our 3D printing maestro and resident creative genius, the artist who blends tech and talent seamlessly. It's Tony Baker.
Hi, everybody. I'm making a robot that actually prints another robot.
That's awesome.
So cool.
Get ready to hear from the source, the keeper of the cages, our sharp-eyed journalist and reporter, and the voice of truth and tales. It's Thomas Carroll.
I tell only truths. My brother tells only lies.
And let's make some noise for our special guest, the safety director NHRL and the builder of the legendary BattleBot Mammoth, here to guide us through the new bot design rules, the champion of creative bot building. It's Ricky Willems.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And we are so thankful to have you. Thank you for being on the show. Well, the recent AMA provided the broad overview. We're diving into some of the finer details of these new rules to uncover their full meaning and implications. We'll explore the reasoning behind these changes and how they'll be enforced and what builders need to know moving forward. From the intent behind the prop section to qualifying some of the criteria for walkers, this episode will shed light on these new updates and shape the future of robot combat. But first, just like any guest we have on, we need to learn a little bit more about Ricky by playing our favorite icebreaker. That is... who's that superhero? So, Ricky, I don't know if you've ever listened to a show, but every guest that we have on is asked a question. And the question is, if you could be given a superpower, but it has to be an off-brand weird superpower, not something like flying or speed or anything like that, what would it be?
Oh, man. That is... I should have thought of that ahead of time.
Sam, his superpower is he creates maple syrup from his chest?
Shoots maple syrup out of his stomach.
I remember hearing about this, and I don't know that it came... I don't know how it came up in discussion, but knowing Sam, it just kind of... that can just happen anyway. It might not have had anything to do with this show, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But, man, I really like the idea. I mean, it just plays into my usual habits, but I really like the idea that if I try to change something unrelated about some object, there's just like a 50% chance that it fixes the object. You know, like, oh man, the car is literally on fire, and I like fidget with the trunk keys, and it's, you know, it just runs again or something. I don't know. That's
so like one of those things in a game where in order to fix something you have to hit it with a hammer and then it just fixes itself.
Right, and it has nothing. Yeah, the computer is broken because it's shorted out, and you smack it with a hammer on the side, and it just like you hear the AOL logon noise, and it works.
Oh, I love. What was it, Battlefields, where it was like literally a torch? You're like torching the tanks, and the tanks are fixing themselves.
It just, you know, works.
I'm just gonna put this torch up to a jet. Just a jet flying through the middle of the air, just sitting on the wing. Yep, good times.
That's how it works.
Yep.
That's how it should
Video
work.
game logic.
That's how it would work if I had my superpower. Would
Yes.
work.
That is awesome. One to add to the pantheon.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the rules specifically. So for anyone listening, listening and not knowing that the new design rules came out is kind of weird, but if you don't know, the new design rules for 2025 came out. Ricky had a huge hand in helping those, and him and his team went through and made some new design rules for 2025 to try and clear up some things from before, make some new rules, try and make things a little bit more precise and better moving forward. So we're going to be talking some of those. If you haven't seen them, there is a link in the announcements page or rules and regulations page on the NHRL Discord, I believe. It's also on the wiki.
It's pinned on the rules and regulation tab of the Discord right now.
Okay.
Good. That's where it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to go and take a look at that whole thing, it links you to a page on the NHRL wiki. So you can also go to the NHRL wiki, look for design rules, and it'll take you to where it is as well. So it's another way to get to it. But so we're going to be talking about that. Ryan, you have taken a lot of notes and done a lot of preparing. So I'm going to let you take the helm for this discussion. So take it away however you want to start.
I mean, we could round robin and ask questions. I think the first thing I wanted to ask you, Ricky, is how exactly do you come up with a new rule set? Like, how do you start? Where do you start? How do you accomplish that?
Well, it's a lot. I'll tell you that much right off the bat. This was a little different because we've had a different approach to changing the rules each and every year, and while there's always a lot of thought that goes into the rule changes themselves, there wasn't a lot of thought that went into the process that you go about to changing the rules. So that was the thing I probably have the largest factor in, is how do we create a plan to do this in a way that makes sense, not just right now, but moving forward. And then the second half of this is that the rules changes, we're not creating this in a vacuum, right? There's an existing tournament, there's an existing set of bots out there, there's an existing meta, there are fan expectations, there are company expectations, there's entertainment expectations. So then how do you apply that process, or how do you design that process and then apply it in a way that works for all these parties that have sometimes interests that are the same, sometimes interests that are very different, and sometimes interests that collide and compete with one another. So it was a lot of planning before we wrote even one word of the new rules, to think not only how are we going to do the rules for 2025, but how will we set the rules up for 2025 so that 2026 is easier, and how will we do them in 2026, and so on and so forth. So that's just the background. Yep. The general idea here is that the rules for combat robotics in general have been a very, shall we say, naturally evolving process with a few outside influences that sometimes get very intense. So I'm sure when people started fighting back in the Robot Wars days, there was a little more thought put into it than the average year. But generally speaking, they were like, these are the things we want to bring. How do we make it reasonably safe, and how do we make it reasonably fair? That a lot of those assumptions don't necessarily apply in 2024, and don't necessarily apply when you're trying to take a sport or an event from what it was 10 years ago to what we think it can be in years going forward. So the basic things that we wanted to outline first, before we even got into the rules, is what's the crux of combat robotics as it exists now? What are NHRL's goals and priorities, both as a business and as a steward and a promoter and a supporter of the combat robotics world? And what are the people in this for, as far as the fans and the competitors? So you outline those broadly, and you create, I've got a very hokey, very corporate-looking flowchart spreadsheet of these are the different competing interests, these are the areas of the vision of production and the vision of the tournament, in terms of competitiveness and what the community wants out of it. What are the financial aspects that go into it? And through all that, we can create a rubric as we go through and see what each of these rules' effects are going to be on all of these disparate topics and how they all play into making the sport better, making the league better, making the business better, and making sure everybody has a good time at the events. And that, as I say that all out loud now, it sounds a little pretentious. I'll be self-aware on that.
Well, it sounds like you are trying to balance what would be best for the builders while they're building, what would be best as far as the safety and when the fights are actually happening, as well as what would be good for a viewer viewing it so that we can get viewers actually watching it. That there's like these three balance points that you're trying to accomplish all at the same time. And that sounds like a lot that you're trying to all juggle to try and get the rules to fit all three of those criteria, if I'm understanding what you're saying.
I would say it's not pretentious at all. I would say that really, actually, you putting that much thought into the rules really shows why these rules, as I look at them now, are compared to the old rules, are kind of like the old rules were like, you know what, it'd be cool if you did this. But, like, they weren't as like, I like that there's a lot more definition with these. There's a lot more definition. There's a lot more, all the rules don't like kill creativity or anything like that. What it does is it gives you more of like, in the past, somebody would be like, but would this fit in it? There's a lot of things in the new rules that really define things in a lot better way. And I really appreciate that NHRL and you really put the thought into these rules and didn't just go, well, I think these would be good, and like toss them out there and see what happens.
I'll tell you, that would be a lot easier than what happened. This was supposed to only be a couple month exercise, and not just myself, it's been a big focus for me personally for more than 6 months now. I don't even want to think about it. Like the better part of the year, and it's been a lot of the rest of the team pulled in. There's some things I can do. I can do data finding. I can talk to builders and take notes and go back and look at Discord comments and analyze fights and things. But I'm not a person who can say with certainty how, how a fan feels when they see things. I have to remember there's a lot of things that I like that fans don't, and vice versa. Not that I'm not a fan, but I am one fan. Right. And the same thing, too, for production side of things. Some of these things they don't seem like a big deal to me, but if you add an average of 30 seconds onto the load-in of every robot over the course of a year, that's an immense amount of time and money, effectively, that gets put into doing that. So small tweaks like that can be a very big deal. So getting all of that on paper so that it's understood, so that you know the factors that go into your equation, was the majority of the time. Maybe not the majority of the effort, but the majority of the time. And I think it's like a lot of things, right? Is that the prep work is like 95% of things, and then bing, bang, boom, you do the fun stuff, and you've got hopefully a good product. The thing I do want to say before we get too much farther into it is there were more rules than not that we looked at this year and said, wow, that is going to have to change in the future, or wow, we know a change we would like to make going forward, but it's not reasonable, especially with the rules dropping in November. It's not reasonable to completely pull the rug on that for the future. One of the big ones that we identified months and months ago, and we tried to make the community understand early, is we weren't going to be getting rid of the shuffler bonus, at least not at the 50% mark. We just felt that would be too much of an abrupt change and hit too much of the field and hit too many designs, not only that competed in 2024, but we're already planning and built for 2025. And there are a lot of examples like that where we said we have some things we have to change. We have some things that we know need to change, but we can't wholesale change everything. It's not respectful to the time and money and design experience that builders have invested in the current rule set to just flip a switch entirely.
So going along with what you just said, are you going to be looking at basically stating that there's going to be rule changes coming in the future earlier in the year so that won't happen in 2026?
Yeah, what we're looking at doing, well, there's a couple of aspects here. The first thing we're going to look at doing, or are in the process of doing, is creating some kind of metric ranking system, what have you, for the existing rules, so that we can say this rule is a beta testing rule. This is something that's in flux. That I don't know the terminology we're going to use on it, but hey, heads up, this is probably going to change next year. Or this is a direction we want to move to. And there were a few of those. We posted an introduction to the 2025 rules that included a description of some of those things that we know are directionally going to change.
Soft rule, hard rule.
Is there any thought about using something like a roadmap from like a video game to kind of do that? Just to make builders aware of like these things are on our roadmap and these are the prospective dates for each of the roadmap like stops. Like,
we'd love to. That's the plan. How quickly we can get it to go. We're a pretty small team, so
yeah.
We've got a roadmap, and here's the other aspect too. We don't, not that we try to be very transparent with builders, but we also have to be a little bit careful with the roadmap when it's in flux, because if we say, hey, I'm just making something, this isn't the case, but if we say we're going to get rid of wheeled robots for 2025, and we change, and we change,
you heard them.
that's going to get clipped right out of context. Yeah, if we do that, and that's on our roadmap now as a first draft, and then we eliminate that in a month's time because we say, actually, that is absolutely ridiculous, we cause problems. So it's one of the things that we don't want to do in a way that we're uncertain of or isn't really dialed in. I would like to get a roadmap out. I would like to put it somewhere. We have a bunch of bullet-pointed lists that haven't been fully vetted on what we think all of the outcomes were going to be. And part of it, too, though, is there's a not choose your own adventure. There's an if-then kind of thing to some of this roadmaps. And it's not the best example, but the prop rule for this year, right, is getting. I'm sure you guys are going to ask about that more later. But,
oh yeah, we were gonna go over that. Yep.
Yeah. But as an example, you see how that goes for the 2025 season a little bit. And if this happens, then you can do these things. If it doesn't happen or something else happens, you can do those things. Plus a whole bucket of what happens if something completely unexpected arises from a result of this. So roadmaps are a tool to be used cautiously, at least in a public-facing manner when people are investing hours and money and blood, sweat, and tears into what you're putting out there.
Yep. I was going to make note when you were talking about the load-in times, you are talking to the correct people because you're talking to the people that get robots up and then have to worry about getting them into the cages and then getting told that we're behind time and we need to catch up on time. So you are talking to the correct people.
Well, gentlemen, hold on. No. That makes me... I'm going to take over the seat here of the interviewer and you can sit for the interviewees. How do you feel about switch orientations?
Oh man. Okay. I think I completely and totally understand the thinking behind the switch orientation, because and I understand like how you've already modified it for Beetles, correct? That like it doesn't apply to Beetles.
We are just saying that this is 12s and 30s.
Yes. To move one of those robots can sometimes be pretty hard, especially one that's like extremely large or like in a weird shape or something. And when you need to be safe and you need to access that power switch, at the cage or up in safety or anything like that. It should be in a spot that not only the builder expects it to be, it should be in a spot where every other person responsible for the safety of that robot expects it to be. So the ref at the cage, the cage manager, everybody at a cage should know that if you're looking for the hole to turn off that robot, it's on the top of the robot.
Now, wait, Ricky, I have one question before I answer. Does it need to be on the top or sides or back allowed?
We wrote it such that it must be accessible when the robot is in its default fighting position, which that wording apparently has some other issues, but that would imply that the front, the side, the back, the top, all of those are.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, for 1 pound, 3 pound robots, I agree. It doesn't really matter where it is. You can manipulate them easy. But people that have 30-pound robots, or larger if it's a walker, that put their switch on the bottom, I just do not understand why they did that.
No.
Like, we have the smartest minds. We have people. We have Jameson Go. We have all these builders who have been building forever. They've been to engineering school. They'll spend hours looking at material data sheets for different types of steel, yet they can't figure out a way to make the switch not require them to flip this giant honking mess of a robot over. Well, put it on the back. After a fight, your robot could be upside down. It could be in a corner. You don't want to have to flip this thing over and lose your hand.
It's something we bring up. I know I've done it a couple times when running robots through safety. If we see something like that where we're like, you know, why is the safety there? You do understand that that's not, like, why do you have the safety there? Which before we didn't have any kind of thing to say, well, you can't have it there. But it's always been a question of, like, why is your safety on the bottom? Why is it
smart people? Make smart robot decisions.
There was one that came through safety one time that the safety switch was like behind a wedge, and you had to like pick it up and like pull the wedge forward in order to get to the safety switch. It's like, why did you put it there? Why? So yes, we
I like
totally
the new rule.
agree, Ricky.
Yes. Yeah.
It is one of those things that when I started at NHRL as safety director, I was like, holy crap, how is this not a rule already? I don't understand at all. And don't get me wrong, it is true that in some uncommon cases, there's a safety argument to be made for putting it somewhere else. But there's almost never a safety argument to be made that you couldn't have engineered your way around if you looked, if you planned it out well enough to begin
what I'm waiting
with.
for is people to make ambidextrous switches that are activated from either the top or the bottom.
Wouldn't that be
switch.
nice?
Or invertible.
There's been a couple examples. And Thomas, I know you've seen them before, and definitely Ryan, being over at safety, there's been a couple of times that we've had newcomers come and they bring the robot up and you ask, where's the safety switch? And they go, what do you mean? They're like, oh, the robot's already on. What do you mean the robot's on? Well, I turned it on before I put the top plate on. There is no safety switch. Just like, no.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. Is there any thought about adding in a stipulation for marking where the safety is or anything like that?
There is, and then we went back and forth on that a little bit, and I have a very strong feeling as the safety director that someone is going to require that for the 2026 rule set. But if we can start with making sure that the switches are a little more acceptable, that would be nice. We do lean on this isn't, for instance, at BattleBots, right? Part of the idea of having the switch markings is that anybody can turn off a robot at a glance. That doesn't really work out that well, and when you have the option to run a removable link instead of a switch, then there's debatable utility, and different switches have different tools that are used for them. It's essentially that we didn't get the logistics worked out of what the best way to be doing that would be, but it makes perfect sense to have a required labeling or some kind of thing.
Yeah,
Even
if NHRL provides the stickers, like...
Yeah, and of course we want the stickers to be neat. One of the things I really like, I do race car scrutineering and inspections and stuff for different racing series. And if you go to if you go to a Formula One event or you go to an endurance championship or something, we give out stickers to the teams, and these stickers are kept under lock and key, and they only get them for some of these things when they pass a certain level of scrutiny and inspection. The student series are a really good example of this. You only get a sticker on the front that says you pass X, Y, and Z thing when you pass that. So I wouldn't mind if we had a sticker that, say it goes on the back of the robot that says three out of 3 safety switches approved or something, and then there's a corresponding sticker on, assuming your robot has 3 safety switches. It's something that we just haven't figured out the slickest way to do, and we don't think is a huge limiting factor right now, but it's a good way to make things a little more, not just safe, but safe at a glance. We want these things to be, it's the same idea with the tag on the weapon lock. You want to know from 10 feet away, oh, the weapon lock's in that robot. Perfect, good.
Yep. We were, let's skip over to weapon locks. What was the thinking behind changing that weapon lock? I love the weapon lock rule, by the way. I've been an evangelist for weapon locks for a while, since I started helping do safety checks on Friday nights. I have been an evangelist for okay, people need to learn more about what weapon locks are and what a proper weapon lock looks like. And I really like the rule of adding on that markings. You need a tag, a specific tag. And I still have 2 of the old NHRL ready to fight.
Remove from fight.
The flight
remove from fight and everything like that, tags and everything. What was the thinking behind changing the weapon lock rules? What do you think about that?
It's really twofold. The first one that people, it doesn't matter how many times we would say it during inspection process or whatever else, people didn't really seem to get that part of the functionality of a weapon lock is that your robot is obviously rendered safe. If you have a official or a staff member or something who looks at your robot and wants to pick it up when it catches on fire or whatever else, and they don't see a weapon lock, they're going to treat it differently than if they do see a weapon lock. And we have lots of competitors show up with weapon locks of every shape and size and description, so having something that makes it obvious if a weapon lock is in or not, it eases things a lot. It also eases things as we're going through the pits and other places when your robot should have a weapon lock in, and we can see from a glance that, hey, you don't have it in right now. We can tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, what's going on? So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that people, frankly, just aren't putting enough time and effort into weapon locks, and I get it. You're focused on the functionality of your robot. You really want to just get your robot done, and the weapon lock can unfortunately sometimes turn into an afterthought. But we really need to change that culture, and giving one more step that you got to plan ahead on, how's my weapon lock going to have a feature that I can add a tag to, at least gives one more focus point that, hey, the weapon lock matters, and you need to think about it at least a little bit.
Yeah, right, Ryan, I know you've gotten a little bit of pushback on that as far as trying to get people, because there's some people that come up and their weapon locks are just not up to snuff at all.
I mean, there's still people showing up with clamps as weapon locks, and the clamps are clamped onto the weapon, and it's can you please go find something different? And usually people do. People are always good about it and everything like that. Every time I've run safety, people are like, oh, okay, I completely understand. It'll be really good to get a standardized weapon lock from now on. That's this is how it works, this is where it is, and everything like that.
It's not that hard to design a weapon lock. I mean, again, I'm not trying to criticize builders.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
it's not when both of the designs that I've done and the one that you did, that we've done, together and everything, we put holes behind the weapon to slide something in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I always want to give a gold star to people. There are people that have taken designing a weapon lock into, oh, this is my time to be artistic about this. This is my time to make something really awesome. There's ones that are like, I've seen weapon locks that are bigger than the robot itself. Of like, it just renders the whole robot incapable of moving because it's just this massive like 3D printed object that goes onto the weapon, and they're excellent. I always want to give those people a gold star of like excellent.
Well, look at
awesome.
Mako's. Julian and Mako's, like the one that goes around that saw. That's just gorgeous. I love
questions about weapon locks and examples that people have been asking if they count for weapon locks. So the labeling is pretty clear. It needs to be like 1 inch by 4 inches or 1 inch by 5 inches, and it needs to say removable before fight or something similar. There are a lot of people that make like large wedges or large blocks that go into a lifter arm, or people that make large covers that go over their weapon. Let's say they have something without an actual tag, but it's a large piece of printed material. As long as it says remove before fight and it's an identifiable color, would that be acceptable?
You know, that's a great point that I don't think we had even considered.
So like for Julian example, he has like a large, it's like a 2/2 saw blade cover. If that was an identifiable cover and said remove before fight, it's large enough. But he just locks it together with an Allen wrench just to keep it in place.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, if it meets the weapon lock tag rules by being a weapon lock, then it would also meet the tag rules.
So as long as it's large enough, identifiable, and says something to mark it as a weapon lock.
Yeah, there's nothing in the rules explicit, at least I don't think it's written such, that your tag cannot be the weapon lock itself.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So like Seth could put remove before fight right on that little block that locks in place or something.
I believe so, yeah.
Cool.
As long as the block is large enough. There are some small blocks, and remember, part of this is to make it obvious from at a glance.
So like his current design, it would have to be extended out a little bit to make it large enough.
Potentially, yeah. I don't know off the top of my head.
And then do you want to do anything as far as like colors? So let's say you have a really bright yellow robot like Mako. If you make the weapon lock in bright yellow, do you think that would be acceptable, or should it be stand out from the color of the robot in addition?
I have a feeling... well, actually, that's a good point. So part of the ways that I described this in the AMA was people should just be accepting that if we come up and we think it's not obvious enough, find a way to stick on one of our... We'll give you one, but find a way to stick on a new one. I think generally speaking, if it has... as long as it's super visible and it says in very visible text, weapon lock, etc., whatever, it's gonna be fine. If it really blends in, the worst case scenario is, hey, put this tag on it. I have a feeling what we'll do is just get a couple of those like wood screw eyelet screws, and if it's a printed piece or a wooden piece or something, like, hey, drill a hole in there and crank this sucker in there, and now you have a place to hook on the weapon.
That's awesome.
Good. And if you search weapon lock or NHRL on Maker World, you can download my weapon lock designs or the tag designs.
Okay.
We don't want to rip out people's like cool weapon lock tags that they already have for next year, and I think. You guys will be a good example of how we get the feedback as to like, hey, does it need to be the same color? Has this been clear enough throughout the year? Does it need to be a dangling tag and not incorporated? But
it seems like the kind of thing where if there needs to be a change, that's something we could be like, hey, builders, do this.
It'll be very obvious, and it hopefully won't be a big labor for builders to change if we find that we need it.
Yep.
Right. I mean, Tony is one of the people who are going to see it like straight up, other than safety who have to see it when the bots are tested. I mean, Tony sees them every time that they're weighed. He's got to like take the weapon lock off, put it back on. So
see, I would like to go even further. It's like, here's the weapon lock, here's the weight of the weapon lock. Because like actually having them take them off at the actual pit test,
true.
and everything else is not the greatest thing in the world.
That's something we've been thinking
As
about.
it's marked, it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm happy with the change.
This isn't mentioned in the rules, but one of the things that we talked about doing for weight dispensations that we have now that are very explicit is just do a little printed thing that accompanies the robot that we hand out that says, "Hey, this is your weight dispensation," so that you know this is the tear weight when it comes up, and you just carry that with you, and you're good to go.
Yeah, a little sticker that you put on your tag.
I love that. Like a little. When we weigh them to go down, they could be like, "Here's my bonuses. Here's the bonus. Here's the weight of the robot. Here's this whole thing." I like that a lot.
We just need to make a character sheet for every bot. That just has some stats.
I'm a 12-pounder.
we didn't get to implement this for this year, and I'm hoping that we do for next year. We didn't get to implement this for 2025. I'm hoping we can for 2026, or maybe for the Pro League or something else. But I want those, the smart badges that you sometimes get at conventions and things. I want smart badges that have a digital readout with all of your robot stats and everything they've passed and haven't passed, and the tear weight and their current record and the next fight on deck and a countdown timer to when you're fighting next,
all right, Jimmy's
etc.
Ricky's in the next century at this point. Make this
happen. No, we could incorporate all of that into the mythical NHRL app that also allows us to notify people when their fights are up.
Exactly.
And be able to have like a show where they are on the map, and they could get notified of things wherever they are, no matter what. And it could also be
current respiration rate, perspiration rate, digestion rate, the whole bit.
So everybody can be carrying around the little thing that sits at the pit desk that shows like all the levels that are sitting upstairs in the air. Okay.
Lock offsets, maybe in the future.
Hey, Havoc fans, love what you hear on the Havoc Rundown. Want to support the show and get more exclusive content? Head on over to buymeacoffee.com/the Havoc Rundown. Again, that's buymeacoffee.com/the Havoc Rundown, and show us some love. Every dollar you give helps keep the cast coming your way. You want some more exclusive content? Join us on Patreon and unlock exclusive audio clips, behind-the-scenes content, and full transcripts from every episode. Dive deeper into the Havoc and be part of the Rundown community. You can even join our Discord. And for all of you merch lovers out there, we are teamed up with robotsruinmylife.com, which is a combat robotic merchandise store. For our official t-shirts and future merchandise, you can check it out there. It's the perfect way to wear your love for the Havoc Rundown loud and proud. So what are you waiting for? Fuel the Havoc at buymeacoffee.com/the Havoc Rundown. Join the Inner Circle on Patreon and grab your gear at robotsruinmylife.com. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay chaotic.
The next thing we wanted the first rule set that we were going to talk about is weight bonuses and weight changes. What was your thinking going into making the changes to weight bonuses before we go into like smaller parts of it? What was your thinking going into the weight bonuses? It's been like this major thing. Weight bonuses in the past have given us like Silent X with the shufflers, loopholes, depth charges, all that sort of stuff, and mini bots. What was your thinking going into changing those weight bonuses?
Well, there's no secret that the weight bonuses at NHRL have been quote unquote broken for some time. We know as a business that the rules are one of the best tools that we have to accelerate changes or incentivize things and experiment with how the sport could grow. And we've been as much of a mess as it's been, we've been pretty pleased at how amazing the tech development has been in relation to weight bonuses. There's been a lot of really interesting things done, but two things have happened, or well, a plethora of things have happened, but two big things have happened. One, the weight bonuses have started to be not only a feature that makes certain designs competitive, but it makes them dominant. And we don't necessarily want weight bonuses that make X, Y, and Z strategy dominant long term. We want to encourage all kinds of things, but we don't necessarily want to say that this is the only way to win. And more broadly, it's made competing at NHRL a less accessible thing over time. It wasn't a big deal in the beginning, but as you start to have more robots that feel like they require a mini-bot, or more robots that feel as though a shuffler is the only way to be competitive, and these sort of changes, and as more of these robots take advantage of these rules in a way that makes them not compliant with other competitions, that has a very real cost to both the monetary investment that builders have, but also their time and effort and everything else. And that was just all getting well past the point of being reasonable. Moreover, we also have just a rule set that we know as we appeal to more people and we have more fans who might not know anything about combat robotics, much less the intricacies of NHRL rules. We want a rule set that can be explained in 2 sentences. And having really complex permutations of how weight rules can be applied makes it really hard to have that basic conversation in 2 sentences. So all of that came together and said, let's simplify this, let's bring it back to basics, let's reset it a little bit before we start doing anything more adventurous. Because longer term, we do want some adventurous, at least we potentially want some adventurous things to happen, but we know we can't jump there from an already, we'll call it kooky weight bonus rule set.
Was the non-stacking, the addition of the non-stacking weight bonuses a big part of that?
It was, and let me talk about that maybe a little more in detail. One of the things that became really obvious as we looked into weight bonuses is that weight bonuses are not a linear benefit situation. So if you have a 2-pound weight bonus on a 30-pounder, and you have another situation that offers a 4-pound weight bonus, you've gone up by 2 pounds each time, and maybe the jump from a 30-pounder to a 32-pounder, or the jump from a 32-pounder to a 34-pounder isn't that large. But the farther you get away from 30 pounds, the bigger difference it makes to the robots and to their competitiveness and to the entertainment factor and to everything else. Continuing to add more weight gets this exponential growth of how non-competitive and non-fun and confusing and everything, and all these other negatives start to ramp up really fast. It really doesn't make a huge difference to most fights if one robot weighs a pound more, 2 pounds more, or 5 pounds more, but it is obviously a huge deal when it weighs 15 pounds more if it's a 30-pounder, and stacking more on top of that to make it, effectively a double bonus is just huge, and it makes it very difficult for robots to be built and driven and everything in a way that works out well.
And especially when it starts getting harder for somebody who is just that regular 30-pounder to compete in a field that has started to grow into like, oh, I'm a 30-pounder that now has to fight a 40 and a 50-pounder to like get through a tournament, and why am I the only beetle that's 3 pounds?
Yeah,
and you look around and you're like, wait, I have a beetle right now. What's going on?
We don't mind so much if someone shows up with a 3-pound beetle and says, not that this is the case, but why do I have to fight a bunch of 3.5-pound beetles? It's like, you know what? That's probably... It's a competitive difference, yes, but it probably doesn't make your robot completely non-competitive. But if the average person has to show up and fight 4.5 pound robots with their 3 pound robots, that's not reasonable.
Right.
At least if that's the majority of competitors, and if those 4.5 pound robots don't have some very good reason for making them 4.5 pounds.
Yes.
So, getting into the weighing thing, because I'm the one who has to weigh all these robots on a regular basis. What was the big change? Like, we have tons of multi-bots this year. I think that was like the new meta. Everybody had to have a multi-bot. Even the bots like, oh, yep, I'm going to put this little wedge bot next to it. There was a major change in the multi-bot weight bonuses this year, or going into next year, where they all have to be, it's equal weight, basically. So if you have a 2-part multi-bot, they both have to be 2 pounds for the 3 pounds. And you're not allowed to fidget with that if you want your bonus.
That essentially is right. You have, if you want to do a multi-bot, or rather, you can always do a multi-bot. If you want to do a 28 pounder and a 2 pounder, you totally can. That's still allowed. But if you want to get a weight bonus for those, your weights of your components are equally distributed. So right now we're giving 40 pounds for a multi-bot in the 30-pound class, but that means you can have up to 20 pounds for each robot. Unused weight from one segment does not get applied to the other. And the idea here, well, there's a lot of ideas here, but one is that multi-bots are fun. I think people like fighting against multi-bots. They like watching multi-bots from home. But
they like driving multi-bots.
Yeah, they like driving multi-bots.
Mm-hmm.
They're
just
they're also
Team Honeycrack.
Yeah, they're also a really great community aspect. I can't tell you how many people came and said, this is how I connected with my daughter. This is how I got a bunch of friends, and created this team, or this is how I got my students engaged in combat robotics. It's an important community thing. It's an important accessibility thing. It's generally easier to have a pair of multi-bots show up that are equal weight. Not, it's easier to get into the sport if you only have to worry about half of a competitor of an entry. Is what I'm trying to say. But we can't have that break the whole system. And the original multi-bot bonuses did a really good job at encouraging multi-bots, and it really advanced the meta, and it advanced... I do think it really advanced the sport in a lot of ways, but it was also really getting out of hand. It reached a kind of logical conclusion where it was only going to get more out of control from then on, and it became time to take a step back and figure out how to make it so that we retain a lot of the good things without hitting so many of the drawbacks.
Right.
Now we talked about previewing rules and thinking about what rules would look like. Was the teams event a really good way of, when you were thinking about changing those rules, was the teams event actually meant to be kind of a I'm sorry, I can't think of
testing
words
grounds?
tonight.
Trial
A testing
by fire.
grounds. Yeah.
It wasn't exactly, but it was funny how it ended up playing out that way. I think, if anything, it was a testing grounds for the idea of making sure that we retain more flexibility in our rule sets. And it's tough when you want to give people a consistent, predictable rule set that's fair and unchanging throughout a whole season, but also when the meta evolves event to event, and you need to respond to it. So I think the bigger message coming out of the teams event was, hey, sometimes tweaking things on the fly suddenly, even if people just have to deal with the repercussions, is really worth it. I can't tell you how many competitors came up to us after that event and said, you know what, just forget the precedent, forget the people who are going to complain, ban mini-bots right now for the rest of the season. A lot of competitors said that. And we thought about it, and we're like, that's really not fair to do in the middle of a season, and we don't really want to ban mini-bots. There's good things here. but it was one of the reasons that we felt so comfortable making such a big change, despite the fact that it's getting close to the end of the year and you've got only 3 or 4 months left until potentially your first fight of 2025.
Right. Well, I know Peter Grenache had all of his mini-bots, and he told us multiple times that the whole reason he has these is he's trying to overwhelm NHRL and make NHRL change the rules. And that was his whole guiding principle behind having so many mini-bots.
Well, it's tough, right? Because it's not a competitive or a rules guiding principle, but one of the guiding principles of the business more generally is that NHRL should try to accommodate innovation and interesting things and ridiculous requests whenever it's in the spirit of the rules of being fun and inventive and fair and everything else.
Yeah.
So some of those things where people want to push rules in a well-intentioned manner end up just really the breaking point is higher than is convenient or fun for us staff. I'll put it that way. So I appreciate Peter wanting to make those impressions, but they didn't work out that way. It's the number of mini bots that people brought this year is not what caused us to change tact. It's the feedback from builders, from fans, from staff that says, hey, this is less competitive, this is less fun, this is more confusing to watch, this is less engaging as a fan, this is more expensive, this is more complicated. I have to have even something, I wouldn't have thought of this myself, but we got feedback from many competitors saying, hey, my entire NHRL experience is more expensive because now I have to bring 3 people to every event, and we have to pay for 3 hotel rooms, and we have to bring 2 cars, and we have to pay 3 times as much for food because I need a mini bot driver.
Yeah.
That's not something we want, and it's not something that I will say is unreasonable to ask of competitors when there's a really good reason for it or everybody's having a good time. But if nobody's benefiting from it, then it doesn't make any sense to ask that.
I will also say I did the judges training and everything like that, and it must be harder for judges to judge fights also because you have to pay attention to the judging rubric also talks about mini bots, because a mini bot not participating in a fight is also a ding on your control and your aggression. Your mini bot being destroyed is also another ding on you or anything like that. So as a judge, you're also having to pay attention to 4 bots in the arena at all times too. When you're trying to pay attention to the 2 main bots, you're also having to pay attention to the 2 mini bots as well. So that must have been a pain for judges as well.
I'm sure, and we know we have got limited statistics on this, but we do have some statistics that on average these things, even if you tell the judges to ignore X, Y, and Z thing, even if you say that this isn't part of the rubric, some of these things do affect judging outcomes. It's one thing to know that this thing doesn't apply logically, and it's another thing to watch a fight and have the same outcome in a reliable sense. So, we can sometimes see in the judges' results that this person, despite the fact that X, Y, and Z thing shouldn't be part of the equation, took it into account, and that'll happen sometimes. But if we can lower the incidence rate, let's do it.
Are you part of the team working on the judges rubric for next year? Are the rules going to be majorly affecting that at all, or?
I'm part of the team. I'm not, obviously I'm not the main person, and it's a little less. Yeah. I won't say I was the main person doing the new rules. That's not right. But I was the person leading I was the project manager for this project for the design rules. And it's a little more all hands on deck for the judging rules, I'd say. There are definitely going to be changes, but I think most of the changes are this. There are changes that are just clarifications that came up over and over again, or little broken minor pieces. And then there are changes that had to be taken into account just because of the changes in the design rules. So I know people asked about what happens when you have a weapon now that's not considered a quote-unquote active weapon because it doesn't pass a functionality test, and those things need to be added to the judging criteria.
That was
for the most
that was
part,
actually
directionally the same.
That was also one of that was one of Jake's questions as well when he was having a discussion with Beyond the Bots. That was one of Jake's questions, was specifically about
the specific question was, in a scenario where a robot has two weapons, one compliant and one non-compliant, how is aggression scored when the non-compliant weapon is used? For instance, if the 2025 Supreme Ruler's flamethrower is compliant, but his cam forks are not, how would judges evaluate aggression shown by the cam forks? And that sounds more like a judging rubric kind of thing, but it was more of a clarification on the non-compliant weapon thing.
Yeah, and thankfully that's something that we will make more explicit, but it is already pretty well covered in the judging criteria, in the same way that if you lose your primary weapon, or if neither robot uses their primary weapon, or if robots use primary weapons in equal amount, then the next thing down the list is how much aggression did you show with your wedge or your positioning or whatever else. That's how we're going to look at this. So the language will get a little more explicit to say that, but your primary weapon is going to be the main thing we're looking at. How do you use that? If we'll pick on Supreme Ruler for a second, although we generally didn't in the rules, despite a lot of theorizing that we were going to. But if you cam lift someone a dozen times and you only use your flamethrower or show intent to use your flamethrower if it's empty or broken or whatever, then that's going to count a heck of a lot less than someone who, smacks you with a hammer a dozen times or something like that. It's still going to matter. It's still going to factor in, but it's going to be a much smaller factor unless there was no other weapon aggression to speak of.
I have a more fun topic to talk about. Let's talk about true walkers. I know a lot of people are really excited about it. I'm sure you're excited about it, Ricky.
I am excited about it.
Yeah.
I've gotten some horrifying and very entertaining screenshots of CAD that people have already put together. So,
please.
I know exactly what one you're talking about.
I think most of these are shared with me in confidence. But we've got a lot of, how do I put this? A lot of things that either look like they came out of an H.R. Geiger artwork or some really strange jungle life that just I really want to spoil things, and I
so
really
without
shouldn't.
saying what it is, if you happen to be in a certain Fox's server, which is public, there is a photo of one of these robots, and it's very cursed.
I don't know that I'm in that server, but I have seen a couple of very cursed designs.
I know one of them that was sent directly to you, and it might just be the most cursed of all of the designs.
Okay, yeah, that is...
It's the one that kind of,
The one that might be on an off-brand version of a show with David Hasselhoff.
You might see it at a zoo.
Okay.
A weird zoo.
So I'm really excited for that because H.R. Geiger is one of my favorite artists of all time. So the fact that there is robots that might look like something he created or came out of his mind just makes me so excited.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I think we should start the True Walker discussion with, of course, I think the question that a lot of people are asking, how do you if you are building a True Walker, how about this? If I am running safety and I have somebody place a robot in front of me and say, this is a true walker. How do I know it's a true walker?
Well, I know the answer is going to be call me and I'll figure it out,
Yeah.
but like...
No, the answer is that shouldn't happen because we are very explicit in the rules that it needs to be not only approved before the event, but approved before you register.
Yeah.
Okay.
We really we are really going to be harsh on this, where it's like if you don't go through the channels ahead of time, it's not going to get the true walker bonus.
So the same thing as flamethrowers.
Well, flamethrowers, honestly, we're pretty lax about. We really like flamethrowers. I've got the system down. Nominally, I would love it. In fact, I keep saying, like, can we not just like close the flamethrower thing so that you only can run a flamethrower if you are approved before registering? But it's, we haven't done that so far.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, this is going to be something that's specifically checked with us. But the gist of what is going to pass and what isn't going to pass is you've got something with legs, or features that could be described as legs. These features are going to have more than one degree of freedom in their movement, and movement of these legs that can move your robot across or within the arena cannot be affected by the rotation of, or it cannot be, when I say affected, it cannot happen due to the continuous rotation of a motor. The way we're going to look at this is that if you turn on a motor and it starts spinning and your robot starts moving, it's just a really complicated shuffler.
Right.
We don't want people to come to the walker.
It's a wheel with extra steps.
It's a wheel with extra steps. That's exactly right.
So things like linkage legs, those would not count.
Right. There's a thing called the Jansen mechanism, or Jansen linkage, that you see like really cool walking sculptures that are like wind powered and things like that.
Yeah.
They're awesome. That's
Spine
not what
crawler.
we want.
Spine crawler would be an example of that exact mechanism.
Mm-hmm. We don't want people to be getting into the arena simply by having really creative mechanical engineering solutions on how to make wheels more complicated.
Now there is the clip. There is the clip right there. Okay.
So
Can
things
you
like
be...
Jay Lee's robot, the second generation, where it was 2 servos per leg, or maybe 3 legs. Servos per leg.
Was that the second or
So the very first one, it required a mini bot underneath it to move.
Mm-hmm.
The second generation was able to walk on its own. It only fought in grudges, I believe. And then the third generation had the swerve pods.
Okay, the swerve pods would not work. I believe, as I recall, the second generation would be allowed to compete.
Yeah, so if you're looking to build a robot, something very similar to that with the same type of leg design, that would be pretty much a clear pass.
And again, I apologize for not remembering the robot as clearly as I would like to, but from what I remember of the robot, it was a clear pass.
Sounds good.
Can you tell us more about what the process... So I made a CAD and I sent it to NHRL to get okay.
Safety at NHRL.com.
There you go.
.com or .org?
.io.
It's .com.
.io.
Yeah, that's right.
There
It's
you
.io. Yeah.
Sorry, I got the wrong one.
My email with my CAD gets sent through. What are the next steps, if you could tell us what that's like?
The next steps is, if it's really clear one way or another, whoever gets the email, be it myself, Jimmy, Gil, one of the other staff, Austin sometimes, whoever it is going to say absolutely not or absolutely yes. If that isn't the case, we'll say, hey, this looks really cool. We are going to discuss it at our next internal rules meeting. We're going to have a group discussion on that front. Ask, each other what we think, how take a look at our rules, see how it matches, potentially make a list of questions to ask on how it functions. We may or may not say from that point that it's good to go or not good to go, or we may ask for a CAD or some other level of documentation to figure it out. There is, as there is with a lot of other rules this year, we're going to try to be relatively permissive. So if it's a borderline thing, we'll probably let it fight with a, I'm going to say preliminary, that's not quite the right word, with a provisional, there we go, with a provisional approval. If it seems absolutely broken, or if it seems like it's not actually furthering the idea of walkers as we envision them, then we will probably just let it fight for the event. But if it's at risk of being one of those situations, we'll tell the builder before they, compete with it. Hopefully before they build it.
Cool.
You are a excellent builder in your own right and everything. How would you solve this problem? What kind of robot would you build? Would you build like something with very like spindly little legs that are defended by a huge like over shell? Would you build like
crab.
Something
Well,
trying to be fast? What would you do?
I think this is gonna... My personal interest, if I was going to do walkers, would be cracking the code for how to have a walking system that is both intelligent and also very speedy. So I don't think walkers are going to be a solved problem until you can have a walker that shows up and is more mobile than a wheeled robot. And I don't know what the weight bonus that's required for that to happen is going to be, but that's what I would be shooting to do, is say, maybe a wheeled robot works better in some ways and worse in others, but on average, this is going to compete at an equal playing field in terms of mobility to a wheeled robot. And to do that, and I think this is to let you guys, the thing I've had in my mind for forever is I just need to build a facehugger. And honestly, coming out of this year, one of my lessons learned for myself is, unfortunately, it's just not going to be practical for me to compete myself, even if I have a down event in the future, which is a real shame, because I would love to enter and actually put some development time into doing a true walker for the NHRL rule set. And maybe if we have another All-Stars or Teams event or whatever, I can figure out how to do it. But it's really tough doing hosting, doing safety, doing prep and inspections and planning, and also competing. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
I totally understand what you mean by like it has to be like a walker, like an intelligent system, and it has to be fast, because we all remember Chomp on BattleBots and how that went. So
Well, I would argue that Chomp was actually a decent robot. It's just
it was a decent robot, but it was never fast enough to keep up with.
Yeah, they kind of gave him a squash match, and they still had a hard time. But it was an awesome robot. I love it.
I'm not saying it wasn't awesome.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I agree with Ricky where it has to be a smart design, but it also has to have the speed. Because if it doesn't have the speed, then you're just going to get out, driven. And
I think there are ways around that. I mean, if you built Son of Waiachi with a Chomp walking system at 500 pounds, it would have been a terrifying monster and may well have won a giant nut. But Zoe and company, that wasn't their intention going into it.
Right.
And they had a lot of good design and spiritual reasons for not taking that approach. And they built a really cool robot that accomplished... For so much of this, right, you got to remember that robots built for NHRL or any tournament have different design intents and different reasons that people are competing. It's a very different goal that Zoe might have versus I might have versus Jake might have. There's a whole list of things that can bring people here, and part of the rules is trying to accommodate all of those, at least the NHRL open rules.
Right. Makes sense.
What I really want out of True Walkers is Paws to become a True Walker and have very creepy little cat legs that come out.
Little stompers.
Little stompers.
Be careful what you wish for.
Pogo stick action, which is discovered pounce.
We did have some builders asked very specifically, it's like, do I need more than one leg? I assume I need more than one leg. I was like, if you want to show up with one leg and either limp your way around the arena or you want to pogo stick your way around the arena, I'm not going to stop you, and no one here is either.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
I also saw that ice engines are still allowed.
They are.
They are very rarely used. Would you ever think about giving some weight or otherwise bonus to encourage ice engines, similar to like?
Well, they get a small amount in that their weight is exempt for fuel.
Yeah,
and the tank as well, was it?
Yeah, the tank. Thank you. Yeah, the tank and the fuel are both exempt. Now, that's not a whole lot of weight, especially when you're limited on how much fuel you can run. I would love to have more ice engines, but I don't think
For
I have
anyone listening that is just Googling right now, that's internal combustion engine.
Sorry. Yeah, it should have been more specific. Yeah.
The old technology that's in cars, those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also just committed like 12 ATM machine phrasings right there, I think. But
Oh yeah.
that's okay. I would love more engine-powered robots, but we don't have a great thematically consistent reason to give them a weight bonus just for existing. And I think that's part of the way the rules are written this year is there are specific weight bonuses for things that we believe need a weight bonus to meet the design intent that we want to support and that builders want to bring. But the weight exemptions are more practical matters. Like, this is something we are going to allow you to do or encourage you to do simply because, not because it's more or less competitive or whatever, but because it just makes sense for logistics reasons. And there's some competitive advantage to the weight exemptions, and there's some competitive practicalities to the weight bonuses. It's not exclusively all one camp or the other, but that's kind of how they're separated. If there was something else on a internal combustion engine that we could say, that doesn't really count as part of the weight, and it would make sense kind of from a logical, easy to explain to people way of why it's exempt, we'd probably throw it on the exemption list, but we don't have any concepts to that effect right now.
Okay. So we have 3 questions left. I have 3 questions left.
You have 3 questions left.
Well, do you want to do the spare robots or Jake's other thing?
I was going to do the spare robot question
because I'm very interested. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a new rule about spare robots. Many competitors have brought spare robots in the past to ease repair time and have direct access to additional configurations. So what was the thinking defining spare robots in the rules, and how do you define a spare robot without getting into the whole ship of Theseus type argument about what constitutes a spare robot?
It is tough. I'll say that right off the bat. The other thing I think that's worth saying is it's not finalized yet, but we have been working to try and define not just what is a spare robot, but what makes a given robot, period. And this is a clarification I'd like to put at the end of the rules as a temporary note. It's not part of the design rules nominally, it's part of the competitor rules and the registration rules and everything else. But we're going to have a more permissive concept of what a given robot is defined by. So it's going to be something to the effect of the number of wheels, legs, or shuffler pods you have on your robot and their relative position, the weapon type or types that you have installed and their location on the robot, the weight class you are in, and any weight bonuses that you take advantage of. That grouping of things is going to constitute what we consider your robot to be. Now, that leaves, for the attentive listeners, that leaves a tremendous amount of variability. If you were watching BattleBots at home, let's say, that would say that Hypershock and Witch Doctor could be the same robot for all intents and purposes. We're going to move in that direction simply because we don't have a good way of enforcing it. Otherwise, we can't look under the skirt of every robot all the time to figure out the level of changes that are being made fight to fight. And we don't want competitors who, making up an example, right? If your last robot got completely toasted and your frame is bent into 4 pieces and you want to go out in the parking lot and build a spare frame out of some plywood and a old ammo box that you found in a junk pile, we want you to be able to do that and get back in the ring and have that story to tell. So we're going to have a more permissive idea of what constitutes a given robot. But to go along with that, we need a way to make sure that these robots are safe when they're in the pits, are meeting the rules requirements when they go into the arena, etc., etc. Since we're weighing robots before every fight, we don't care as much about the individual weights of configurations, but we do care about whether or not they've passed a fail-safe check. We do care about whether or not their weapon lock makes sense. We do care about whether or not they're using 300 volts of battery or something silly like that. So we need a process to accommodate this. And the changes to the chassis or frame rule as they are in the design rules right now was mostly to support the changes in the rules elsewhere. And honestly, they're not robust enough. And we thought that they were kind of middle of the road before we put them in there. They're one of the weaker points in the wording of the rules. We knew it was one of the weaker points in the wording of the rules going into it. We didn't realize just how wildly unclear they were for such a large number of robots. So that's going to get a heavy revamp here in the coming weeks in relation to, I should say, not in relation to, in response to how the rules in the rest of the document get finalized before they're released.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Thomas, you want to ask about props?
Yeah, or do you want me to ask about props or the other one?
No, you asked about props.
So, Ricky, I am imagining that February 2025 is going to be Home Alone, where people are bringing marbles and BBs and metal rods and paint cans and door stops and bear traps, and I am all for it. However, a lot of the builders are kind of freaking out, coming up with a whole bunch of edge cages, which I guess they make sense because you don't really want to be stuck on a wedge and count out in 10 seconds. Where do you kind of intend the props to be used and implemented, and what kind of things, albeit difficult to kind of narrow down, what kind of things are you trying to avoid?
So, before we get into that, I want to point out 2 things. The first thing is that we release a set of rules with a tremendous amount of wording effort and a new section at the beginning that's longer and more explicit, and an introduction document that talks about the idea that we don't want people to go into the rules and just try to break things, and that we're going to be a little meaner to them in the future and just say, sorry, you're out if they really break them.
So a box of packing peanuts is not allowed.
I didn't say that, but I want people to know, as they're sitting at home listening to this, that it's what is it? Cavit and pour. Buyer beware. If you bring this and it's broken and we don't like it, we're just going to tell you to stop, and we're not going to be very sympathetic if you don't like being told to stop. So there's that. The next thing also, so that's number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2, this is more restrictive than the 2024 rules. You could always do this. This has never been forbidden before. We restricted the use of props more than it was before, and people are saying, how could you add a rule that allows people to do this?
The funny thing is,
before.
No, people did. That's the other.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If people were
gonna-
just like, "Oh man, I'd never thought of this before. Why did you call attention to the fact that your fly was down? Like it's so embarrassing for you." Okay, fine. That's not what happened. We have had a prop at every NHRL event for the last 3 years. At least one person has shown up and said, "Can I put this in the arena with my robot?"
Yep.
And we just say yes.
I know Emulsifier 2 years ago, they had a whole entire plan where they were going to drop airsoft BBs in the field where the tracks could go right over them and everyone else gets stuck on them. And as far as I know, they said they got approval for it. They just didn't end up using it.
Right.
So there was a bot, I think it was in 2022, called Iron Eater, I think,
Yes.
and they dropped iron filings.
Yes.
And there was
That
a whole thing
highly
because
controversial one.
yes, and there was a whole thing about one of the robots they fought said it got caught all up in their weapon motor, and there was a whole thing about it, and it wasn't illegal for them to do. It was approved, like it was a thing that they could do. So that's
They were talking about it.
when they were talking about these props, I was like, that's what I thought. I was like, I didn't think that we made them not legal before. Is this changing the legality, or is this just something we're putting in for a regulation? So it's just something we're putting in for a regulation. So
Now-
all of the freaking out about this is like, it's always been there.
I
Yeah.
just want to see Home Alone.
also we've had bouncy balls and stuff like that in the cage, and like NHRL themselves puts the bouncy balls in the cage for when they want to have fun.
But Ricky, I have one question with this though, because it says that the weight of the object is part of the robot's weight.
yes.
So if they're bringing a bunch of stuff, I have to weigh that with the robot?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
I need a bucket.
I think you're entitled to a bucket.
We will label it Tony's bucket.
Yeah.
Tony's prop bucket.
Yeah.
I'll jump back to the iron filings aspect. That was ruled potentially a problem. We found out it wasn't later, but it was ruled potentially a problem because we do have a rule on entanglement that says things cannot interfere with the rotational or moving parts of an opponent. So we already say that the things that you're dropping in the arena, if you're dropping things in the arena, they can't get like spun up and wrapped around axles and tied
Thomas.
into the wheels and things like
I
that.
did no such
Thomas.
Now, on the other hand, if you're going to drop cattle chops or literal door stops or something, you can do that. Now, keep in mind, they can't move, so you have to move them around the arena. They have to start in your starting corner, so they're going to be out of the way to start with.
Important question about this. The
Yeah.
door stops. People are asking if you got stuck on a door stop and you're being pinned, I guess it might count as a pin for 10 seconds. In order to quote-unquote release that pin, do they just get counted out, or do you have to use your own robot to free them from your own debris?
So this is still a little bit of a TBD, but my understanding is the latter. You are going to have to unpin them. Now, granted, you get a free shot at them.
Yep.
The best way to unpin them is probably to like pop them right in the chin, but
And I guess that also gets into a judging thing where if you unpin them before 10 seconds, that will still count. But if you hit them after the 10 seconds, it may not count for points.
yeah.
So that's also going to get tricky.
Yep, it could, assuming that anybody actually does this, which, again, they haven't in the past. But this is going to be one of those rules that's going to be marked, if we're doing green,
It's being
yellow,
worked on.
red, or something, and green is like good to go and not going to change anytime soon. This is a big fat red, like a prime topic for a mid-season rules review. Do we want to keep doing this? Or even, hey, we got 2 events in and it went nuts and we don't want
A very
this.
malleable rule.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to seeing a little fairy weight be put into the beetle weight arena that all it does is like lift things, and they place like a whole like amount of stuff in front of it, like little boxes, and instead of fighting, it just lifts little boxes around the arena. It goes around the arena.
How much volume 5 pounds of packing peanuts is?
Oh, I am quite sure. I am quite sure.
Who's the postal worker here?
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
So the other thing to keep in mind too with these rules is that we are more permissive of people doing quote unquote abusable things with the rules if it doesn't become the meta. If there is a contingent of builders who want to show up and put put a jug of packing peanuts in the arena every fight,
it may become an issue.
It may become an issue, but if it happens once per event, it's not the end of the world. If it happens, in 1 in 4 fights, that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
So
bring your own vacuum.
Yeah, that we didn't officially codify this yet, but I have been pushing hard that
you have to
robots
clean up the mess
that are
you make.
Yes, basically. We probably won't end up doing that, except to shame people in rare circumstances.
Airsoft EVs, glass.
Yeah.
I mean, if you make too much of a mess and then you just walk away, even if it's not in the rules, I mean, come on.
I mean,
hot dogs.
We've tried to say this to people many times. Like, we love a good joke. We love something that's funny, but we want to be in on the joke. If you tell us ahead of time that this is a risk, we will accommodate it if it's reasonable, or we'll tell you, hey, this is really a pain in the butt. Please don't do this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the senior pranks at school. It's like, we're not going to stop you from doing it, but let us know.
Oh, you had a very different high school than I did.
Thomas, do you want to ask the other question?
Yes, so I'm sure you're well aware we've had some high-profile fights where robot builders will configure underneath blankets in their tables and have tents and be all in secrecy, load it into a suitcase, and then bring 2 different robots up to the table, the pit desk. In the past, Mike Jeffries has helped come up with a kind of method for deciding that, where they have to show an efficient, each team has to show an efficient their configuration, and that's determined to be locked in. This season, it's kind of been locked in once the robots have been weighed. Is there any... It's not actually in the rules, it's just kind of something that we've decided because it needed to be done. Is there anything that's going to be added to the rules officially, like a specific time when they're locked in to prevent just unnecessary delays?
Yep. And the main headlining idea for how that is handled is that you have to tell people by the time your robot hits its minimum viable repair window. We've talked a little bit, being a little more flexible with that, but
so does that mean, like, when your 20 minutes starts, that's when you have to determine it?
That's what we're talking about right now, or perhaps 5 minutes after it or something like that. We want people to have the majority of their repair time and service time to be able to focus on making the repairs and changes that they need to make, and not sacrifice any of that time second guessing what their opponent is going to do. Of course, the thing that you have to balance here is that sometimes you are repairing a robot and you found out, this one motor that only fits when I run this configuration or something is burnt out and I have to make a big change. So you have to have some level of flexibility there. But yeah,
and then there are also some robots. I believe Connor said that Waddles is like a 4-bolt configuration change to change its weapons. So like some can change very quickly. Others, I know one robot last event or the event before, they have 2 separate robots entirely with their 2 different configurations. So it's a half-second change. So it's
right. And to be clear on that, that's allowed, but only if either robot is capable of running the other configuration. So yeah, that's certainly a possibility. And like I said,
so the timings and everything is being worked on, but there likely will be something that's hard written in as far as the process.
Yeah, it'll definitely be hard written in. The question is it hard written in that you have to report what it's going to be very early in the process or midway through or very late in the process. Mm-hmm. The show up with a mystery box at the last minute is pretty neat, and we may still have people show up in mystery box, but we are hitting some situations where, yeah, it's great that's, Waddles, I guess, can manage that in a very quick manner. But if their opponent can't, and they're trying to match Waddle's strategy, then that causes delays and problems. If you want to be
secret, put a tent up in the pits.
Well, we talked about that too. Is there some way to make this a little more secretive? And maybe that's something that the primetime pits can offer.
Actually, that might not be a bad idea. Have some dividers that are available in the primetime pits.
Since they're spaced out, it's a lot more feasible.
Ask production.
Yeah, I have a feeling, and that might actually be a neat way to do it, is, hey, you have all the time you want once you get to the primetime pits. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Two different sets of timing. One set for early on, one set for primetime.
Yeah, well, basically, you'd say once you're in the bracket.
Yep. And then one very quick question. It's actually, I have two ways of asking it. Thank you for giving me my rule finally about airbags. Why has this happened? And Ricky, how could you have done this? You took away my brainchild. How have you done this?
Airbags were effectively banned since airbags happened last time. I'm going to make no bones about this. Airbags are a bad idea to be at combat robotics.
I agree
100%. They are unstable devices. If anyone has followed the lawsuits that are associated with certain brands of airbags that cheaped out, and instead of using propellants the way they're supposed to, they use outright explosives in the airbags to inflate the airbags. And the fact that these can go off very suddenly from, say, a small static discharge if they're not properly cared for, it's a safety nightmare to have them. And the thing that was really the death knell here, because before it was like, yeah, if it's a suitably talented and responsible and trustworthy
I put a lot
builder,
of effort into making sure that I had multiple interlocks on that. And
yeah.
It was still terrifying.
There are ways to do it safely if it's a person who meets those benchmarks. But even then, this qualifies under Connecticut state law as a pyrotechnic device. And as such, it needs to be reported ahead of time to the state of Connecticut, to the city of Norwalk, to the state of Connecticut Police and Explosives Division. It also needs to be demonstrated ahead of time how it works. So you need to shoot off your airbag potentially multiple times in front of state officials to demonstrate not just the functionality, but the safety features associated with it. And that's a lot, guys. It's a whole lot.
Is this specifically because it's a commercial display, or is this because it's being used not as intended in a car system, which has those safety features built in?
This is specifically because it's being done as part of a event with an audience.
So same thing with why the fireworks were kind of banned and rocket motors.
Precisely, yeah. And to be clear on the fireworks, that's something we have the ability to bring back right now. It's just something that has been shown to not really be competitively effective, and with the level of effort that goes into doing it, we don't feel it's worth the lift to try and certify each time. We also get into an interesting gray area where potentially the NHRL staff will have to be the ones to push the button that fires off the firework, which is just a wonderful legal, not loophole, but intricacy.
That's just how the licensing and everything works.
Yeah, which it just becomes a whole thing.
Does that mean if a robot had fireworks on it in a match and you were up on the desk, you could potentially have a big button that you pressed every time the firework was supposed to go off, at the desk.
If I could just have the production folks cue up the ba-da-da-da-da-da-dun-dun, smack the big red button, that's now we're talking.
So likely it's only ever going to be done in like a Havoc
challenge thing. Like I could see this.
Other than that, it's probably not going to.
Right. No, that's a great point. Is that this is something that I fully expect will happen with the occasional Havoc challenge, but I would not expect us to. They're just we've had fireworks before. They were neat a few times. They would continue to be okay. They don't add a lot of outcome benefit, and they add a tremendous amount of headache for our staff. And some cost too. So, Havoc challenge, great. It's like there's a couple other people who have wanted to run really interesting robots that we'd love to see 1 or 2 times, but we tell them like, hey, we're happy to entertain you for a Havoc challenge or an exhibition match or something else, but we're not going to allow you running this for an actual event. And let me put that out there too, in case it's not clear. It's in the rules, but some people read those. If you've got something that is, even if it's explicitly banned in the rules, and you think it would be really cool to see, we might be able to accommodate you just doing it as an exhibition. So let us know. Send us an email. Say, I have this cool idea. I want to do it. You have a really impressive polycarbonate cube in which I want to do it. And then we'll say yes or no.
Sounds good. I've
Very
got
cool.
it. The only competitive airbag robot in history that will ever happen.
Yeah.
That's for the best.
Thomas is like 3 airbags?
No.
4?
No. Don't tell Ricky
You
about
hit
my
the bot.
airbag non-traditional motion robot.
You know, Thomas, there were some airbags once upon a time that were compressed gas airbags. They didn't last very long in cars as a concept for a lot of reasons. But if you got your hands on one of those, that's still an option. Well, heck, the older design of Kraken for BattleBots was a car lifting airbag, different type of airbag.
Yeah, no, I do remember seeing those.
You know, if you want bags filled with air,
it's not a good idea, but it's doable.
Thomas is like, I want to give Promhita the airbag this time.
Hey, yo, new config.
You can't say the word airbag in front of Zach anymore. It gives him nightmares.
Well, I'm glad that I finally got my rule, so that's cool.
You have been
good job,
immortalized.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, I don't think we have any more. We've hit that magic mark on the episode, so I believe that is all we have. We want to thank Ricky. It was amazing having you on, getting some rule clarification and listening to the reasons behind some of these and the brain work that went into making these rules a possibility for 2025. So thank you for being on. It was awesome.
Thank you very much. We got a lot of good information.
Yeah,
we will have to have you. We will have to have you back on for an actual interview so we could actually hear more of those stories. I wanted to hear all about like inspecting cars and everything like that. But
Ryan was taking notes.
Yeah.
We'll have you on for an actual interview.
Yeah.
Because we love doing those. So we'll have you back on.
I will continue to exist if everything goes as planned. So.
Okay, and that, my fellow bot enthusiasts, wraps up another thrilling episode of the Havoc Rundown. We talked to Ricky Willems about the rules, the new 2025 rules. Before we sign off, a massive shout out to our incredible listeners. Your passion for robot combat fuels the gears of this podcast, and we're grateful for each and every one of you. As we power down for now, remember to subscribe, rate, leave your comments, let us know your favorite moments from today's episode. Share your thoughts on the world of robot combat. We love hearing from you. Also, make sure to check out our link tree, linktr.ee/Havoc Rundown. That has all of our links for our socials, store, all that kind of stuff. Stay tuned for more electrifying interviews, behind the scenes insights, and the latest from National Havoc Robot League. Till next time, this is the Pit Control crew signing off from the Havoc Rundown. Keep the sparks flying and may your gears always turn in your favor. Everyone say goodbye to our wonderful listeners.
Adios,
Bye.
folks.